Stairway to Heaven, Chapter 1. Grillby was working behind the bar as he did every day, serving fries and burgers, mixing drinks, as was accustomed to him. Bartending was his occupation, as he had owned and operated his bar and grill for many years. The task of being a bartender was simple enough. Making drinks for paying patrons was easy for him. Although behind the counter, mixing drinks was all he did. He seldom listened to any monster's stories anymore. No one really ever talked to him much other than to order, and he was quite fine with that. Grillby didn't need to speak to be a good bartender, as long as the drinks were perfect and the food was warm and to their liking. Being completely on fire didn't stop him from accomplishing that either. Most of the beverages were of varying flammability. This evening was no different from any other evening in Snowdon, as it was always below zero. The cold made them go to Grillby's for a bite of something hot. He had a few loyal customers and regulars that were in almost every day. Dogs, mostly. Those dogs always came after their shifts and the Royal Guard were over. They were something to see. Of course, he had other monsters that came in. One of his regulars was a short skeleton named Sans. He always cracked out puns and made the others laugh. Sans was in so much that he had his own tab. Grillby should never have made that tab, because Sans never paid it off. He would have to eventually. Oh well, Grillby made decent money from his profit, and tips were rather good. It gave him much pride to have come this far with his restaurant without any help. It had taken years for him to become this successful, and that had been anything but easy. Now nearly every monster in Snowdon had been to Grillby's at least once, even Sans' nutty younger brother Papyrus. Even though Sans was older, Papyrus was much taller, about the same height as Grillby himself. With Snowdon's biting cold, the only monsters that lived there had been there for all their lives. Secretly, everyone wished to see a fresh new face amongst the crowd of familiars. Grillby also wished to have some new customers, but he'd take anyone. As his customers sat at the tables, occupying themselves with food or drinks or possibly playing poker, he stood behind the bar. At the moment, he was not needed for anything, so Grillby absent-mindedly polished a glass with a clean white cloth, mostly tending to his thoughts than the glass. Suddenly there was the chime of bells as someone entered the restaurant. He looked up to see Sans strolling in, with his hands stuffed into the pockets of his blue jacket, and a big grin that was hard to miss. He sat down at the bar like he always did.
Hey, Grillby, how's it hanging?
He greeted the flaming man, still grinning.
It's fine.
Grillby answered after a moment, his flames crackling quietly.
You're seeming a little cold today.
Some of the customers laughed slightly at Sans' pun.
What's burning you out? Still haven't found anyone to hire yet?
Grillby sighed, sounding more like wind blowing through a fire.
No.
He really needed to hire someone to help. It was getting too much to handle all by himself. As much as he liked the place, there was always a lot of work to be done by one person after hours, and Grillby was sore and tired from not taking a break.
Maybe you could hire me?
Sans suggested.
Pay a tab.
Grillby said.
Yeah, you'd probably fire me anyway.
Sans joked. Some more customers found amusement in the puns. Sans stood from the bar seat and made his way to the door. Halfway he turned back towards Grillby.
Don't worry. I'm sure you'll find somebody to hire.
And he left, bells announcing his departure.
Why do you come here if you don't order half the time?
Grillby wondered to himself, polishing the glass in his hand. He gazed down at it. His fiery reflection looked back up at him, warped from the convex surface. Hey, Grillby, can I get another round of fries? A dog spoke gruffly from across the restaurant. He was pretty certain his name was Doggo. Grillby abandoned his post at the bar and entered the kitchen. In 10 seconds flat, he slid out a plate of fresh and definitely hot fries with salt. He stuck his index and middle finger in his mouth and whistled to capture Doggo's attention. With a jolt, Grillby realized his mistake at once as all the dogs turned towards him, tails beginning to wag slowly and picking up speed. Their tongues lolled out of their jaws as they panted excitedly, slobber dripping from their lips. And then, as if a silent signal was given, they lunged towards him, barking ecstatically. Grillby bolted into the kitchen as they leapt over the bar at him. He discovered he wasn't even safe in the kitchen. He turned around quickly and held his entire weight against the door, trying to hold it back as they threw themselves at its rough surface, baying and howling all the while. The fiery bartender struggled as hard as he could to keep the door shut. A sudden hard slam made his shoe slip, and the door gave a little bound to the dogs. They tried to stuff their snouts through the gap, leaving sticky saliva on the walls. Grillby was starting to worry now. They could trample him to death, or worse, the dogs would relentlessly lick him. His heart dropped at the thought. His flames crackled while he held the door that much stronger.
Please leave.
He thought in panic. What if they got in the kitchen? They would wreck everything he had worked for. Grillby strained against the door with all his might. It was becoming painful with the effort of trying to force back the dogs, but he still did it. His arms felt like they were about to give out any minute when the force on the opposite side vanished. He fell suddenly against the door and leaned on it in relief. That had only been a few minutes, but it felt much longer. Grillby felt his pounding heart and sank down against the kitchen door, chest heaving from exhaustion. The bartender sat there for a minute or two before he stood to check through the window. The dogs had gone, and he sighed as he left the kitchen. His arms felt a bit numb from his battle as he re-entered the bar. Surprisingly, the dogs had done much less damage to his bar than he thought. Grillby had imagined there being broken bottles and spilled alcohol, but there wasn't much, save for some paw prints and... Was that a scratch? Yes, it was definitely a scratch on his bar. Grillby's flames snapped in moderate frustration. "Grillby, you alright?" a bird-looking monster asked from the far side of the bar. The flaming man simply nodded politely, glad it was over, but secretly wishing everyone would ignore him. "There was someone in that chased the dogs out," she stated. It took Grillby a moment to respond.
Who?
He asked, slightly curious. The avian monster claimed they didn't know. This evening he had received much more attention than he would have liked. Some of the other customers were still staring at him, causing Grillby to feel uneasy as he busied himself with washing the bar of its newly acquired paw prints. The air now smelled unpleasantly like wet dog. It overpowered the normal smell of his restaurant. Two monsters got up from the table and left. It was dark outside. Grillby wondered what time it was as he opened a pocket watch. 11:09 p.m. The bells hadn't quite finished ringing before they jangled loudly once more. This surprised him. He wasn't expecting anyone else so late. He watched intently as whoever it was crossed the floor. Stupid dogs. This surprised Grillby. It was a girl's voice who spoke. So she had been the one who had driven away those mutts. She did not speak angrily. Her voice was forlorn and melancholy, perhaps a bit frustrated. Her head was down and her shoulders bowed as she sat down at the bar, closest seat to the right, Grillby's left. The girl appeared to be in her early 20s. He paused, scrubbing the bar.
Hi.
He said softly, at a loss. The fiery bartender studied her face for a moment. Hazel eyes, brown, slightly styled short hair, and there was a faint dusting of freckles on her face. And she had thin rectangular glasses. She was frowning, eyebrows knitted together. Grillby knew that whoever she was, something had happened that was bothering her quite a bit. "Hello," the girl sighed solemnly. It appeared the way she said it, she was not trying to force emotion upon him. That was a very polite quality many failed to recognize every day. Grillby was unsure of what to say.
Hi.
His words failed him. She was staring up at him, a small sad smile playing on her lips for a moment. He felt sympathy to see a kind face distraught, even if he didn't know her.
Can I get you anything?
She paused before answering as if there was a lot on her mind. Thoughts that needed collecting. "I don't know. Something warm. What do you got?" she asked. Grillby stepped aside so she could see the menu. She read it and considered her options. "I guess hot chocolate would be nice." The fiery man was slightly surprised. No one seemed to order that. He didn't know why.
Marshmallows?
He asked as he set the towel he had been cleaning with under the bar. "I don't know. Surprise me," she said absently, her eyes wandering. The flaming bartender left without another word and exited through the door all the dogs had been fighting to open. She had never been in this restaurant before, but the smell was nice, a bit of burgers and wood smoke. It was pleasant. It felt safe, and she needed that. So many things had gone wrong today, and the day before. She felt like she was going to explode from misery. She had no idea where to turn now. A soft crackle of flames brought her back to reality as the bartender easily set down a steaming mug of hot chocolate. She was shocked. How could he have made it so fast? There were 5 marshmallows floating around lazily in the warm brown drink. She lifted it and took a tentative sip, unsure of how hot it was. It was sweet and warming. It was in that perfect temperature that it was hot, but not enough to burn her mouth. She broke out in a smile that combated her blues for a bit. "Thank you," she said wholeheartedly to the bartender. "This is wonderful." He looked up from scrubbing.
You're welcome.
He murmured softly. Though she heard faint gratitude, he appeared to hide in his deep, resonating voice. Is he shy? That didn't make much sense, she thought as she took a gulp of hot chocolate, taking with it a marshmallow. She felt the warm liquid warm her insides, driving out the bitter cold and also washing away the events of the past few days. As she drank, she looked around and noted the neatness and pristine order. Someone put a lot of effort into it. That was something she could appreciate. It was easy to relax here. She decided she might come back another time before she became aware that the bartender was looking at her again. I'm sorry, did you say something? I've got a lot on my mind. She apologized and took another drink from her mug.
No, but I was,
he said as he continued washing the bar.
I've never seen you before.
Oh, I don't go into town very much, but I thought I might tonight, 'cause... She trailed off as her dark thoughts returned, putting a damper on her mood again. She sipped her hot chocolate. He had already spoken more this night than he had all month. If maybe he could help improve her mood, or at least offer an ear to listen, then Grillby would.
Gold for your thoughts,
he offered, and leaned an arm against his bar. She gave a quiet, solemn laugh. I got laid off, she said with a sad smile. I've been working all over the place, trying to find a job that would actually keep me. Every place I've worked at keeps letting me go. For about a month and a half, I was hired out east near Hotland. It was a dead-end job, delivery for room service at this dumb hotel. She shook her head. It's been the most money I've made in a really long time, though. I was hopeful that I'd finally get back on my feet, but they passed some budget cuts and, well, no more room service. She finished. Grillby had nodded appreciatively while she spoke.
That's rough,
Grillby sympathized, his flames glowing and flickering on the bar. Huh, tell me about it, the girl muttered. He thought quietly.
I would rather not.
She continued speaking again. Now I don't know where to go from here. I can't just stop paying bills or anything. Debt's bad enough as it is. She quickly drained the rest of her hot chocolate in a single draft.
Refill?
Grillby asked quietly. No, this was fine, thank you. The flaming man just nodded politely. The girl reached a hand into her jeans pocket. She frowned and checked the other. Her movements became slightly frantic as she stuffed her hands in the pocket on the thick purple hoodie she was wearing. Suddenly, the girl's face lit up like a match, and she went rigid, realization and worry sparking her eyes. How much do I owe you? Her voice was panic-stricken. Grillby briefly raised his hand in a settling gesture. He shook his head slowly.
On the house,
he stated calmly. Her nervousness melted off all at once as she slumped back onto the seat. She exhaled like a deflating balloon. Thank you, she said earnestly. Grillby couldn't help feeling there was something he was forgetting.